It's very rare that we see siblings play in the NBA together at the same time. It's even more rare to see both siblings play really well. It's usually just one guy turns into a star while the other guy struggles to make the NBA. However, that's not the case with these guys on this list. In this video, we're going to take a look at the greatest sibling duos of all time. Alright, let's get started. Number 10, Brent and Jon Barry. While neither Brent nor Jon have ever made an all-star team, they're on this list mainly due to their longevity. They're the sons of legendary Hall of Famer Rick Barry, but unfortunately, they were never as good as their dad. Brent was the more successful of the two as he played a key role on multiple playoff teams, specifically in Seattle and in San Antonio. He was a tremendous three-point shooter, well, both of them were, but Brent was better, and had a season where he averaged over 14 points a game, and another season where he shot nearly 48% from three, the best percentage in the league in the 2001 season. Brent also won the 1996 Slam Dunk Contest and also participated in the three-point shootouts, one of a few players to ever compete in both contests. Jon Barry, on the other hand, he spent most of his career as a bench player, or a bench warmer. He did have a long career though, 14 seasons is a long time. Number 9, Markieff and Marcus Morris. Both Markieff and Marcus have spent many years as valuable role players on their respective teams. They've even played on the same team together, the Phoenix Suns. They were part of that 2013 to 2014 season when the Suns won 48 games, and both brothers came off the bench and played over 80 games together. They were part of the Suns bench unit, one of the best benches in the entire league, and the two of them were essentially the 6th and 7th man off the bench that year. They're identical twins, but Markieff is about an inch taller than Marcus, and he's more of a true power forward, whereas Marcus is more of a combo forward with better perimeter skills. Both of them have spent time in the starting lineup too for various playoff teams, averaging about 13 to 15 points a game at their peaks. Number 8, Marc and Brent Price. Marc Price has to be the most underrated point guard of the 1980s and 1990s. He essentially created the idea of splitting the pick and roll, a concept that very few players knew about back then. The Cleveland Cavaliers at that time were a pretty good team, a perennial playoff team who had some great runs to the conference finals, although they're more remembered for being Michael Jordan's whipping boy. Marc Price was the leader of that team, a 4-time All-Star and 4-time All-NBA member. His brother, Brent Price, was 5 years younger than Marc and spent his entire career as a backup point guard on various teams, but he was a good backup point guard nonetheless. Number 7, Brook and Robin Lopez. Despite being twins, Brook and Robin had completely opposite roles in their careers. Brook was the dominant offensive player in the post, while Robin was the defensive-minded big man, who mainly scored off of pick and rolls. While Brook was and is clearly the better offensive player, his defense has gotten better over the years too. He was also an all-star with the Nets and averaged over 20 points a game multiple times, and he developed a great three-point shot as he got older. Robin is still relatively the same player as he was before, but when it comes to defense and rebounding, especially offensive rebounding, Robin still has the edge. Both of them have had solid careers though. Number 6, Horace and Harvey Grant. An older generation of siblings, Harvey Grant is the father of Jeremy and Jerian Grant, and Horace Grant is well known for playing alongside Michael Jordan on the Chicago Bulls. He was with them during their first 3 championships. Horace was known to be the quintessential jack-of-all-trades power forward. He wasn't super good at any specific skill, but he was a great all-around player. At his peak, he averaged about 15 and 10, 3 assists, a couple of steals and blocks. He was known to be one of the toughest players in the league. Horace even made an all-star team in 1994 and would later team up with Shaq in Orlando. On the other hand, Harvey Grant, his twin brother, also had a solid career, although not many people know about him. He was 2 inches shorter and played mostly small forward and had 3 straight seasons averaging over 18 points a game. However, he didn't play on many good teams compared to Horace, so he never had any deep playoff runs or any championships. Number 5, Bernard and Albert King. We all know who Bernard King is, or at least we should. 4-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA, a Hall of Famer, the 1985 scoring champion, one of the greatest injury comebacks of all time. I made a whole video on Bernard King. He was truly a legendary scorer, most known for his years in New York, and a guy who was way ahead of his time. Unfortunately, his younger brother, Albert King, was nowhere near as good, and no, I'm not talking about the singer. This Albert King had career averages of 12 points a game, came into the NBA 4 years after Bernard, and did not get any better after his first couple years. Albert would transition into a bench player, he had some ankle and foot injuries, and he never lived up to the same success that his brother had. Albert was also a top 10 draft pick too, so it was quite a disappointing career. But Bernard was so good that I had to put this duo this high. Number 4, Steph and Seth Curry. Just like with Bernard and Albert King, the Curry duo would be higher on this list if Seth Curry was better. Steph is basically carrying this pair, but he's carrying them pretty hard. 2-time MVP, multiple championships, the greatest shooter of all time, and then there's Seth. You know, he's developed into a solid role player, although his minutes from team to team have always been inconsistent. He worked his way from being a bench warmer in Phoenix and Sacramento to a rotation player in Dallas and Portland. He even started a large portion of his season in Dallas, but then he fractured his tibia and sat out for a whole year. At his age, I don't think he'll ever be a permanent starter on any team now, but just like his brother, he's also a great three-point shooter, and he's better than what people give him credit for. Number 3, Dominique and Gerald Wilkins. Dominique was most known for participating in the legendary 1988 Slam Dunk Contest, the year where him and Michael Jordan went head-to-head in one of the greatest dunk contests of all time. Definitely a top 3 dunk contest ever. Not only that, but he was a dynamic, explosive scorer who led the league in scoring, and averaged 25 points a game for his career. 9-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, and a Hall of Famer. And his brother, Gerald Wilkins, was a pretty damn good player himself. Just like Dominique, Gerald was a high flyer, and also had his own duels with the great Michael Jordan. While Gerald was nowhere close to being as good as his brother, he put together a very good career. He spent 14 years in the league, most notably with the New York Knicks, where he was the starting shooting guard, averaging about 15 points a game. He also participated in multiple slam dunk contests, one of which, in 1986, was when him and Dominique competed against each other. It was the first and only time in history 2 siblings faced off in the dunk contest. Number 2, Dick and Tom Van Arsdale. Dick and Tom were twin brothers, drafted one after the other in the 1965 NBA draft. Unlike most siblings on this list, both of them became All-Stars. Both of them were perennial 20 points per game scorers, and made the All-Star team 3 times each. Dick's career was a bit short, unfortunately, but he had more team success than his brother Tom, because Tom holds a notorious NBA record that will probably never be broken. In 12 seasons in the league, where he played over 900 games, Tom did not make a single playoff appearance. He currently holds the record for most games played without making the playoffs, and second place isn't even close. He's like 250 games ahead of the second place guy. It's not exactly a great record to have though. With that being said, they were the first sibling duos who both made All-Star teams and played against each other in the All-Star game. There's only one other duo in history who've done that, and that's number 1, Pau and Marc Gasol. In the 2015 All-Star game, Marc would play against Pau, who was on the Bulls at the time. Pau had the better overall career, and he was clearly the better overall player in his prime, but Marc was really good himself. When you factor in how both of these guys were 7-footers, grew up in the same household in Spain, yet both became stars in the NBA, it's pretty crazy. And they also got traded for each other, in a trade that benefited both teams. Marc Gasol's a 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, and a Defensive Player of the Year. Pau Gasol's a 6-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA, the Rookie of the Year, and a 2-time champion. There's a lot of accolades between the two brothers. While neither of these guys individually reached the same superstar status as Steph Curry or Dominique Wilkins, collectively, Pau and Marc Gasol are the greatest sibling duo in NBA history. And that's all folks, those were, in my opinion, the 10 greatest brother duos of all time. Let me know your thoughts and if another duo deserved to be on this list. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.